The sky cracked open with fire as the alien ships entered Earth's atmosphere. People screamed and ran while buildings shook and fell. The world changed in minutes as the sky turned orange and black. No one had seen it coming, not even the top scientists and generals. Jace held his younger sister's hand tightly as they pushed through the panicked crowd. He wasn't a soldier, just a factory worker with strong arms and a tired heart. But when the aliens came, everything inside him screamed to fight. He had no training, no weapon, only anger. The first wave of alien warriors dropped near the city center. They were tall and covered in heavy armor that looked like metal bones. They moved like shadows and struck like thunder. Jace watched one of them take down an entire squad of Earth's defense soldiers in seconds. He picked up a broken metal pipe and ran toward the nearest alien. He didn't expect to survive. He just didn't want to die hiding. But the alien stopped. She didn't raise her blade. Her golden eyes met his, glowing bright through her cracked helmet. He froze. She was not like the others. Her face was scarred, but strangely beautiful. Blue skin, silver lines across her cheek. Her armor was damaged, as if she had just fought off 20 men and still stood strong. But there was something else. She didn't strike. Instead, she spoke in a deep but clear voice. "Why do you come at me with that?" she asked, pointing to his pipe. Jace didn't answer. He was shaking. She didn't move. The fire raged around them as if time had stopped for both. Jace looked closer. She wasn't breathing hard. She wasn't even angry. She looked sad. He dropped the pipe. Around them, the war continued. But in that moment, neither of them moved. She tilted her head and stepped forward slowly. Her armor clicked with each step. "You are brave," she said, "or foolish." Jace didn't know what to say. He looked up at the sky, then back at her. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. Her lips moved slightly, almost into a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Because we were told humans would beg, but you didn't." From behind her, another alien soldier appeared. He pointed a weapon at Jace. She turned and blocked him with her arm. "No," she said sharply. The other alien paused, confused. She stood between Jace and the weapon like a shield. "This one is mine," she said. Jace didn't understand. He didn't even move. Was she protecting him or claiming him? More soldiers arrived. Earth troops fired back. Chaos ruled the streets. But she didn't move. She kept standing in front of him, her armor now glowing faintly in the firelight. "I won't kill him," she said again. The other aliens shouted in their strange language. She looked back at Jace and whispered, "You call me beautiful human, but you haven't seen what I am beneath the armor." Then she pressed a button on her wrist and vanished into the smoke. Jace stood in the smoke with his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know what just happened. The armored alien had saved him. She disappeared before he could ask anything. The firelight still glowed on the broken streets around him. The human soldiers arrived minutes later. They pushed him down, thinking he was a threat. Jace didn't fight back. He just kept looking toward the place she had stood. He could still feel the heat from her armor. The ground where she had stood was scorched, but empty. They took him to a camp outside the city ruins. The base was crowded with survivors and wounded fighters. No one believed him when he told them an alien had saved him. They laughed and told him to sleep it off. But he couldn't forget her eyes. Late that night, Jace found something strange on his arm. A glowing mark, like a small ring of gold, was burned into his skin. It didn't hurt. It pulsed gently like a heartbeat. He rubbed it, thinking it was dirt, but it stayed. He wrapped it with cloth and kept it hidden. Something told him not to show it. He didn't understand why she marked him. He didn't even know her name. But he felt like he was part of something bigger now. Something he wasn't ready for. The next morning, the camp was attacked. The aliens came without warning. Giant machines tore through the fences, while warriors in armor stormed the base. Jace grabbed a fallen rifle and ducked behind a crate. He fired without aiming, just trying to survive. A blast at the wall beside him and sent him flying. His head spun and his vision blurred. But before he passed out, he saw her again. The same golden-eyed alien stood above him. She was fighting off her own kind with a glowing spear in her hand. She lifted him like he weighed nothing and carried him through the smoke. He tried to speak, but couldn't. The battle raged behind them, but she didn't slow down. Her armor was cracked again and sparks flew from her back, but she kept going. They reached an old tunnel beneath the camp. She placed him down and sealed the entrance with her spear. Only then did she speak. "You should not be here," she said. Her voice was calm but firm. Jace tried to sit up. "You came back," he whispered. "I did not plan to," she replied. "But you carry the signal. They will come for you." Jace didn't understand. "What signal?" he asked. She pointed to his arm. The glowing mark had turned brighter. "That," she said, "that is why I chose you." Jace looked at her. She didn't seem like an enemy. Not anymore. Her eyes were tired, but they still burned with fire. She sat down beside him, resting her spear across her lap. "You are not like the others," he said. She looked away for a moment before replying. "I was made to fight, made to kill. But when I saw you standing with that pipe in your hand, untrained and unafraid, I saw something different, something I had lost long ago." Her voice softened. "You reminded me of what I used to be." Jace didn't know what to say. He just watched her, the warrior who had saved him twice, the alien who marked him, the enemy who had become something else. She leaned back against the wall, and for the first time, she looked like she might rest. Jace sat in silence inside the old tunnel as the ground above shook. Distant explosions echoed through the walls. The alien warrior beside him didn't flinch. She sat with perfect posture, her glowing spear across her lap and her armor pulsing with light. He watched her closely. She had removed her helmet, revealing more of her face. Her hair was pulled back into a thick braid, dark and glossy. Her skin was smooth but marked with faint silver lines like lightning under the surface. Her eyes never stopped glowing. He wanted to ask her name, but he hesitated. She looked like a queen, like someone who shouldn't be questioned. Still, the silence grew too long. "What should I call you?" he asked quietly. She turned her head slightly, thinking for a moment. "My name is Vale," she said, "but names have no meaning anymore." Jace repeated it softly. "Vale." It sounded powerful. It suited her. She noticed the way he said it and gave a slight nod. "You fight with your heart," she said, "not your hands." Jace frowned. "That's all I have left." Vale looked away. Her voice was low. "That is what makes you dangerous." He didn't know if she meant it as praise or warning. She touched the glowing mark on his arm. It responded to her touch, pulsing softly. "You carry a bond now," she said. "It connects you to me. It cannot be removed." Jace stared at the mark. "Why would you do that?" She didn't answer at first. She stood up and walked toward the sealed door, her boots quiet on the metal floor. "I broke the law when I saved you," she said. "My kind will hunt me now. And you." Jace stood too. "Then why not leave me behind?" Vale looked back at him. Her face was unreadable. "Because I already left behind everything else. I will not leave you." They moved deeper into the tunnels. The walls were cracked and filled with old wires and rusted panels. At one point, Vale stopped and scanned the wall with her gauntlet. A hidden door slid open. Inside was a room filled with alien tech and maps. "This was a forward station during the first wave," she explained. "My squad used it to plan strikes. Now it is forgotten." Jace looked around in awe. The glowing maps, the smooth panels, the strange lights. It all felt like magic to him. Vale touched one of the consoles. A map of the city appeared. Red lights blinked across it. "They are moving fast. We have little time." Jace stepped closer. "To do what?" She tapped one blinking red point. "To stop the purge, and to end the chain of commands." He didn't fully understand, but he nodded. He trusted her now. That trust had grown from fear, then respect, and now something he couldn't name. She stared at the map, her jaw tight. "I was once their weapon, but now I choose my own war." Jay stepped beside her. "And I'll fight with you." She looked at him and gave the smallest smile he had ever seen. It lasted only a second, but it was real. "Then we begin with the first breach. At dawn, we strike the relay base." She turned to him and paused. Her hand gently touched her chest, where the armor was cracked. "You call me beautiful human," she said softly. "But beauty fades. What I am beneath is not meant to be seen by your kind." The relay base was buried under layers of rubble and steel. Once a parking tower, now it served as a hidden command post for the alien invaders. Red lights blinked from its antenna above the ruins. It looked dead from the outside, but Vale knew better. Jace followed her through the ash-covered streets. Every step echoed in the empty city. The buildings were hollow, their glass shattered, their insides burned. He gripped the alien rifle she had given him. It was light but powerful. He didn't know how to use it well, but he would try. They moved through alleys and broken tunnels. Vale's movements were swift and silent. Her armor didn't slow her. She blended into the shadows like a ghost. Jay struggled to keep up, but he didn't complain. He watched her every move and learned. At one point, she held up her hand and stopped him. A drone hovered above the street, scanning for heat. Vale pulled a small stone from her belt and threw it into the open. The drone followed the sound and exploded into sparks from a trap she had set earlier. "You think like a human," she said without turning. "But soon, they will know you are not just that." Jace raised an eyebrow. "What am I then?" She paused, then turned slightly. "Marked, watched, chosen." He didn't know if he should feel honored or afraid. They reached the edge of the relay base by nightfall. The steel doors were guarded by two tall warriors, their armor darker than Vale's. She crouched behind a fallen wall and handed Jace a glowing disc. "Throw it behind them when I say," she whispered. The moment came quickly. She moved like lightning, slamming into one of the guards with her spear. Jace threw the disc, and it flashed with a burst of white light. The second guard staggered. Jace fired twice. The alien dropped without a sound. They slipped inside the base before more could arrive. The halls were narrow and full of wires. Strange sounds filled the air, buzzing, humming, voices speaking in an alien tongue. Vale moved with confidence, her spear ready, her eyes focused. In the main chamber, a tall figure stood before a large screen. He turned slowly as they entered. His armor was silver and gold, untouched by war. Vale stiffened. Jace saw her grip tighten. "That's him, isn't it?" he asked. She nodded. "He was my commander," she said. "He gave the order to burn your cities. He told us humans were weak, that you'd fall like dust." The commander raised one hand and spoke calmly. "You betrayed the order. You brought this thing with you." Vale didn't speak. She stepped forward slowly. The commander lifted his blade. Sparks flew from its edges. Jace moved beside her, gun raised. The room felt colder now. The air was heavy. The silence was loud. Then Vale whispered, "You never saw them." "I did." She charged. The battle was fast and brutal. Sparks flew as metal struck metal. Jace stayed back, firing at drones that came from the side. Vale fought like a storm. Her armor cracked more with each blow. Blood dripped from a cut on her arm, but she didn't stop. The commander knocked her down once. Jace shouted her name. She rolled and leapt back to her feet. With a cry, she drove her spear through his chest. The lights in the room flickered. The commander fell with a crash, his armor splitting apart like glass. Vale stood over him, breathing heavily. Jace stepped forward. She turned to him, her face lit by the dying lights. "You call me beautiful," she said. "But beauty didn't win this fight. Pain did. Fire did. Truth did." The relay base collapsed behind them as they ran. Flames reached the sky, while warning sirens echoed across the city. Jace held his side, bleeding from a scrape, but he didn't stop. Vale was ahead of him, limping slightly but still strong. She led him to an old underground chamber. The walls were covered in strange symbols. Glowing lines ran across the floor, forming a pattern Jace didn't recognize. It felt ancient, sacred, almost alive. He stepped carefully, unsure where to place his feet. Vale pressed her hand against the center of the pattern. The room lit up. A large sphere rose from the ground, pulsing with soft blue light. "This is where it began," she said. "The first code, the first lie, the truth They buried when we were made. Jace didn't understand, but he listened. Vale removed her damaged chestplate and set it aside. Beneath the armor, her body was covered in glowing marks, the same color as a sphere. They moved slowly across her skin, like fire beneath ice. I was created to obey, she said, to follow commands without question. But the bond changed that. You changed that. Jace looked down at the mark on his arm. It pulsed in time with hers. Why me? He asked. Why did you choose me? She looked at him with steady eyes. Because you looked at me and didn't flinch. Because you saw more than a weapon. You saw a person. That changed everything. Her voice was soft, but her words hit hard. Jace felt the weight of her choice settle inside him. The ground shook again. A deep rumble echoed through the chamber. Vale grabbed her spear and stepped toward the exit. They found us, she said, and this time they won't hold back. Jace picked up his rifle and nodded. Then we don't run. As they stepped out of the chamber, black ships flew overhead. Alien soldiers dropped from the sky, weapons drawn. Vale moved first, cutting through them with graceful fury. Jace covered her, firing from behind cover, his aim better now with every shot. But there were too many. One blast struck near them and sent Jace flying into a wall. His vision blurred. His chest ached. Vale screamed his name and rushed to him. She knelt beside him, her hands glowing as she tried to stop the bleeding. You will not die here, she said. Not like this. He looked at her through the pain. Her face was fierce and full of fire. Then fight, he whispered. Fight like you're human. She gave a sharp breath, then stood and turned to the enemy. Her armor glowed brighter than ever. The marks on her skin lit up in perfect rhythm. Her voice rose into a shout. A wave of energy burst from her body, pushing the enemy back. She moved like lightning, like vengeance given form, like a star ready to burn. Jace watched in awe as she fought. He had seen soldiers. He had seen machines. But this was different. Vale was not made of wires or rules. She was something else now. Something stronger than command. Something deeper than steel. When the last soldier fell, she returned to him, breathing hard. Her armor was nearly gone. Her skin was glowing like the sky before dawn. She knelt beside him and touched his chest. You call me beautiful, she whispered. But now I show you why I was feared. The night after the battle was heavy with smoke. Jay sat under the broken dome of a destroyed building, while Vale stood on the edge of a ledge, staring at the stars. Her glowing marks were fading slowly, but her presence still felt powerful. He wanted to ask if she was okay. Instead, he waited. She seemed lost in thought. Her armor was gone except for her gauntlets and shoulder plates. The skin beneath was covered in scars and lines of light that pulsed with a strange rhythm. I wasn't supposed to live this long, she said without turning. We were made to fight, burn, and fade. But I kept surviving. That's why they feared me. Jace leaned forward. And now you're more than what they made. She turned to him. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Now I'm free, and so are you. Jace nodded slowly. He looked down at his arm. The mark still glowed, softer now, like it was resting. He touched it gently. Vale crouched beside him. They will come again, in greater numbers. They will not stop until we are gone. Jace met her gaze. Then we give them something they can't erase. She tilted her head slightly. What do you mean? He stood slowly and pointed to the ruins. We send a message, not to their leaders, but to everyone. Let them see what one human and one rebel warrior can do together. Vale stared at him. Then she smiled for real, a sharp but honest smile that reached her eyes for the first time. They moved quickly. The old command center had systems that still worked. Vale rewired the transmitter with her gauntlet. Jace found a recording device and set it on the console. The camera buzzed alive. Vale stood in front of it like a storm about to speak. Her voice was steady. I am Vale of the Broken Order. I was made to serve, but I now rise to lead. We were told to erase your kind, but I saw the fire in your hearts. I saw the strength in your weakness. I saw truth. Jay stepped beside her. I am human, Just one. But I stood beside her and survived. We are not enemies unless you make us enemies. And if you do, know that we will not kneel. We will rise. Together. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. His voice was clear. The message was sent across hidden networks. It reached enemy ships. It reached distant moons. It reached rebels who had stayed quiet in fear. It burned through silence like a torch in a cave. It lit the eyes of many who thought they were alone. Within hours, responses came in, not from leaders, but from others like Vale, other broken warriors, other marked humans. A storm had started, not of fire, but of belief. Jace looked at the screen. So many voices, so many symbols, all waking up at once. Vale turned to him. This is more than war now. Jace nodded. It's change. She looked down at her hands. Then we must become something new. He placed his hand over hers. The glowing marks pulsed together. Two lights becoming one. She stepped closer. You call me beautiful, she whispered. But now you've seen my truth, and you didn't turn away. That means more than you know. The skies were darker now, not from clouds, but from warships that hung like shadows above the cities. The enemy had seen the message. Their silence was gone. They answered with fire. They answered with fear. But the world had already started to change. Jace and Vale moved from one ruined zone to another. Each step they took brought new fighters to their side. Humans who had never held weapons before. Aliens who had once obeyed orders without question. Now they stood together. The mark on Jace's arm had spread. It no longer glowed alone. Others now carried it too. A symbol of resistance. A sign that the old order was breaking. Every time he looked at it, he remembered her words. Every time he saw it on someone else, he saw hope. Vale no longer hid her face. She no longer wore the massive armor that had once been her prison. She stood tall with her scars uncovered. Her silver lines glowed like veins of light. Her eyes were sharp and proud. No one dared call her weak again. They reached the outer district of the Central Command Zone. The enemy had built walls there, high and thick. Towers lined the edge with guns aimed in every direction. Jace looked at the map and pointed to a narrow gap near the southern wall. That's where we strike, he said. It's the thinnest point. But we need a distraction. Vale nodded. I'll lead the front. They expect me to come first. Jace shook his head. They'll kill you. She placed a hand on his chest and spoke with calm strength. If I fall, it won't stop them. They follow now not because of fear, but because of belief. That cannot be killed. Jace looked down, heart heavy. He knew she was right, but he didn't want to let her go. Not now. Not when they had come so far. Before they moved, Vale called the others together. Dozens of fighters stood in silence as she spoke. This is not about one victory. This is not about one human or one alien. This is about what we become after this. Fight not to destroy, but to free. The battle began before the sun rose. Explosions lit the dark skies. Fires spread across the field. Drones flew in swarms. Gunfire echoed like thunder. Vale was the first to charge. Her spear burned with blue light. She struck fast and moved faster. Jace led a smaller group through the southern breach. They moved under cover, disabling turrets and knocking out control units. Inside the base, alarms screamed. But the enemy was already breaking. Not from weapons, but from doubt. Some dropped their guns and ran. In the middle of it all, Vale reached the tower. She climbed its walls, broke through the steel, and planted a beacon at the highest point. Light burst into the sky, sending a signal to every part of the planet. It was not a signal of war. It was a signal of change. But then came the blast. A shot from above struck the tower. The top shattered. Jace saw her fall from the flames. His heart stopped. He ran through the chaos, calling her name. When he reached her, she was broken but breathing. Her hand reached for her slowly. He knelt beside her, eyes wide with pain. Don't speak, he said. She shook her head softly. You call me beautiful, she whispered, her voice weak but steady. But this is what I really am. A weapon, a warning, and now a beginning. Jace carried Vale through the smoke as the battle behind them slowly ended. The sky had turned from black to blue. The tower still burned, but the beacons were shining. The signal had reached every corner. She had made sure of it. He laid her down near the edge of a ruined transport ship. Her body was shaking. Sparks flickered along the glowing lines on her skin. The mark on his arm pulsed faster now, as if reacting to her pain. He grabbed her hand and held it tight. "You're not going to die," he said. "Not like this." Vale gave a weak breath. Her voice was faint but calm. "If I do, it's not the end. I broke their system. That was the point." Jay shook his head. "We need you alive. They need you alive." More fighters arrived. Some were humans. Some were aliens who had once called Vale an enemy. None of them looked away when they saw her. They formed a circle around her, silent and strong. Their weapons were lowered. Their eyes were wide. One of the rebels stepped forward. She was an alien too, her armor scarred and her helmet removed. "She changed everything," the woman said. "She made us see. We won't let this be for nothing." Jace looked up and nodded. "Then help me save her." They worked quickly, using stolen tech and medical kits. They stabilized her pulse. Her body began to respond. The glow returned to her skin slowly. The mark on Jace's arm faded from gold to silver, then settled into a still rhythm. Vale opened her eyes again just as the sun broke through clouds. For the first time in days, the light felt warm. She looked at Jace and whispered one word. "Alive." He smiled. "Yeah, still here." She sat up slowly, her body weak but her eyes bright. Together, they stood and looked out over the battlefield. Smoke rose from fallen ships. The flags of the old empire had been pulled down. New symbols were painted on the walls. Marks of unity, not power. Vale stared at them in silence. "They'll come again," she said. "Others like them. Maybe worse." Jace nodded. "Then we'll be ready. With more like us. More who've seen the truth." She turned to him with a soft look. "You believed in me before I believed in myself. That changed everything." He stepped closer. "I didn't see a weapon. I saw a person. I saw fire behind your eyes. And even now I still do." Her fingers traced the edges of his hand. The sky above them began to clear. The stars were no longer hidden. The world felt like it could begin again. They walked through the city that had once been their battleground. People were helping one another. Walls were being torn down, not built up. Machines that had once brought death were now being used to build shelters. The war had ended, but the rebuilding had begun. Vale stopped at a broken mirror. She looked at herself for a long time. Her reflection showed the scars, the lines, the memories burned into her. Jay stood behind her. She didn't look away. "You call me beautiful," she said, "but now you've seen what I am beneath the armor." Jace placed a hand on her shoulder. "Yes, and that's exactly why I'll never stop calling you that.